cloud. I'm gonna get a transcript going, so we have that. And okay, great. Transcript is running. And welcome everybody. We're going to talk a little bit today about our Northeast Florida Indicators project for the beach, as well as housing. A lot of housing data today is going to kind of be the focus of the conversation. This session is really in preparation for our larger convening that's going to be held on May 19th at the beach at Jacksonville Beach City Hall. So we would love for you all to come out to that. Um, that conversation is not going to focus on data like this one is. That one's going to be more focused on capturing the stories of our community and how those stories are reinforcing the data or maybe not reinforcing the data that we see. We're going to facilitate a river of life activity where we're capturing, like, looking at the timeline of history of Jacksonville Beach and capturing the stories and things that have occurred within the community that could influence the data and the way that things are showing up. So, it should be a really cool, fun, interactive session. And also, lunch will be provided. So, I hope that you'll join us for that one. And when we send out the wrap up email from this week's worth of sessions, I'll include the registration link there, which you remember to press that final
Yeah.
registration button. Um, anyway, my name's Allison Ownby. I am the Vice President of Data Research and Strategic Initiatives at the Nonprofit Center of Northeast Florida. Um, so what does that mean? That means I get to do all the really cool, fun Catalyst data work. I own all of our research around the health of the nonprofit community, as well as our compensation report that we're actually starting to work on right now and expect new research to be published in the fall of 2026, as well as some of our new strategic projects like our shared service model that we're currently scoping and building a pilot project around right now. So lots of cool and interesting stuff, but I'd love for you all to introduce yourselves. I don't know if everyone in this room knows each other. I know most of you, but if we could have maybe Ellen, if you want to go first.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ellen Glasser. I'm affiliated with the Beaches Homeless Coalition with Tracy, and we do cold night shelters and compassion nights at local churches as often and as needed. So we've done about we've sheltered about over 3,400 people in the 3 years that we started counting. Just one night events, but a lot of trust built, and that's too long an introduction. So okay, I'm done.
You're good. You're good. Tracy, do you want to go next?
I am Tracy Jabot. I am the outreach manager for housing for Salzbacher.
All right. How about Dawn
Hi, I am Dawn Gilman. I'm the CEO of Changing Homelessness.
and Brian
I'm Brian Snow, the president of housing at Sulzbacher.
and Carrie? Or
I'm
is it
Carrie
Carney?
Messer. I'm the Human Service Administrator for Sulzbacher.
Oh my God, you guys are amazing. Look at you. And I see Beth on the line. Beth, do you want to go or you want me to introduce you? Beth Mixon is CEO of Family Promise. She's on mute though right now. Okay, well, we got a lot of Soulsbrook contingent here, so I appreciate you guys joining. My old, most favorite jobs of my career.
Yes, yes. Your favorite colleague and peer.
Listen, I still donate. I still give money. Um, okay, so let me share my screen and let's see. Let me pull up my PowerPoint presentation. And we're gonna say the center view. Okay. Um, so we're gonna talk a little bit here about Catalyst. So Catalyst is the nonprofit center's regional indicators project. And as you can see on this slide, there's Northeast Florida has a long history of being a data-informed community, and this project has a timeline starting back in 2022. But before that, JCCI kind of led the way for our nation when it comes to building data-informed communities and leveraging data to understand your community, but also build goals for community and monitoring community's health over time through data. So we kind of took our inspiration from JCCI, but have built our own project that really focuses on framing nonprofit leaders as the experts in their field and allowing them to access data in a centralized manner that can build trust throughout the community. And we've built catalysts around kind of four major projects that have been delivered to date. The first one is the Catalyst Regional Dashboard overall that highlights six different areas of data, including housing and homelessness, similar to lead to this one, but also youth and education and others. It shows views of the seven different counties and compares them to each other as well as the state of Florida and the nation overall. We've also partnered with city council members to build them their own dashboard to help them better understand what's going on within their city council districts. We've partnered with Clay County as well to build them a custom dashboard based on the community needs that they see within theirs, and the beach dashboard that we're here to talk about today. So a lot of folks wonder, what do you mean when you talk about the beach? And this map right here tells us the geographic focus of this project. So we see up here we have up north to Mayport, south to Ponte Vedra, a little bit west of the intercoastal as we go back up towards Mayport. And so the primary zip codes you see are listed here. We've got 27336650, all of those, and then parts of 2524 and 82. Over the past almost 2 years now, we've been working with the Beaches Action Coalition to build the data project that you see today. And the North Florida Beaches project is really focused around six different areas. The first is an overview of the beach. The second is economic vitality, which we talked about on Monday. Education was on Tuesday. Food insecurity was yesterday. Housing and homelessness today. And then tomorrow is physical health, mental health, and healthcare access. And so each of these conversations have really been focused on what is the data telling us about the community. One of the biggest takeaways that I've heard this week is around increase at the beach, so a pretty significant increase in older adult population, a decline in children at the beach. I think older adult population has increased about 6% at the beach, whereas children have decreased about 3% during that same time period. And the majority of children at the beach are falling into the older age group, so being between 10 and 16. So we just aren't seeing as much little children at the beach as we have in years past. Also, when we think about the demographics of the beaches community is overwhelmingly white, with increases over time of Hispanic population and pretty significant decreases of Black population. But we'll see some more data around that in just a moment. Also, when we think about the economics of the beach, some of the takeaways that we talked about on Monday were around the majority of jobs located at the beach were from the hospitality sector, right? So at 22% of jobs at the beach were from that sector. And when you think about jobs in that sector, those are not the highest paying jobs. The beach has overwhelmingly high rates of rental cost burden, which we'll talk a little bit about today. And so what we're seeing is the majority of people who are working at the beach in those hospitality type careers cannot afford to live there, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that today as well. So this session is meant to be informal and for you to share out as you see fit So please don't be shy. I'm not shy, and I expect you all to not be shy. So if you have a reaction to something as we're going through, please, please, please share it. So just give me one moment while I pull up the dashboard.
Hey, Allison, while you're looking, this is Ellen.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody brought it to your attention, but our last Zoom meeting was misfiled under economic something. Um,
Okay.
and so, because I was looking for it, and anyway, it was not filed in the right place.
I will take a look at that. I should still have the recordings available to update that. I apologize. Okay, so this is our North Florida Beaches Indicators website. You can navigate here from nonprofitcenter.org. So you can go here, look at, oh, here, Catalyst. So Catalyst is our regional data indicators project. Over here, you'll see all the different dashboards associated with Catalyst, cultural, civic, social vitality, health and well-being, housing, community stability, older adults, prosperity and opportunity, youth and education. You'll also see Clay counties here, which I talked a little bit about earlier, and North Florida beaches. So that'll take us back here. Um, this is just the landing page for the dashboard. It has a little bit about the focus areas as well as just some recognition for the Beaches Community Fund and the Community Foundation for Northeast Florida, who have sponsored this work, as well as the Beaches Action Collaborative, who we partnered with to share data over the past 2 years. This is a helpful section, which I haven't highlighted as much as I probably should, how to use this dashboard. So it talks a little bit about some of the controls. If you click over here, you can copy a link, right? And it talks a little bit and kind of walks you through how to navigate, how to save data, right? So you can, all of this data can be exported to a Excel sheet or as an image. And so you can just insert them into different PowerPoints or other things that you may need to tell your story. You can also embed these into a website. So if you were interested in putting it on your organization's website, just an individual graph or image, you can do that by kind of following these steps. Um, and so this talks a little bit about geography, but I did want to touch on the population. So since the last time we spoke, which was in late February, the data from the American Community Survey or census was updated. And so we see a small increase in population at the beach, which was about 110,000 to about 115,000 right now. And you can see here that the beach's population over time has continued to increase. And we're seeing that projected to continue to increase over time, with about a projection of about 122,000 by 2029. I do want to just touch on some of that race and ethnicity data that I talked a little bit about earlier. So when we look at race and ethnicity, about 23% of the beach's population is considered people of color, right? Compared to 52% of Duval County overall. And when we look at race and ethnicity over time at the beach, we're seeing, again, overwhelming majority of white folks with actually a little bit of a decrease more recently. So we were at a high in 2020 of 93,000. The most recent data has us at about 89,000. But when we look at, if we take out the white population, so you can just click this right here, it'll take it out for us. We see that trend that I was speaking about earlier, right? So we see here Hispanic population increasing to about 10,000 residents from 2,000, and then Black population reaching a high of about 8,700 in 2,000, but that decreasing to about 5,600 based on the most recent data. These are just the kind of percentage population breakdown. So we got 77% white, 9% Hispanic, 5% Black, 3% Asian, and 5% two or more races, with about 1% kind of an other race not Hispanic or Latino. Talks a little bit about the age makeup of the region. And so, in general, the beach's footprint is trending much older than the rest of Duval County overall. So, we see the median age of the beach is 45 and a half, whereas Duval County overall is 36. And so, we can see here how that has changed over time. 20% of the beach's footprint is children compared to Duval County, which is 22, when 21% are seniors compared to Duval County at 15%. Then we can just kind of see some of those trends over time. So adult population is overwhelming majority, where children have decreased generally over time. You can kind of see the generational breakdowns. I won't go too much into this, but I think this is also interesting. This is just kind of the age breakdown of folks at the beach. So you can see the percentages that are of the population makeup, where the largest percentage of population at the beach, about 13%, is age 65 to 74, 45 to 54, and then 25 to 34. So definitely overwhelmingly young adult to middle age, and then a large segment of that population of retirees as well. All right, so I'm going to go over to the housing section now, which you can navigate on the left-hand side of the screen. Um, we've divided the housing section into 5 categories. So the last time we spoke as a group, there was 3 categories here. The 3 categories being owning a home, renting a home, and unhoused populations. But we added in, since the last session, 2 new data categories, being home availability and vacant housing and housing problems. And so I'm going to go through primarily during our session today the new data that's on there around home availability and vacant housing. And so here we can see some data around the number of properties that are available within the beach's footprint. So this doesn't necessarily just include housing properties. This includes all types. So we can see here just kind of by zip code which zip codes are the most developed within the beach's footprint. And then we can also see here the number of properties by decade and when they were built. So this kind of helps us understand what the life cycle of these properties are, right? Are the majority of are things being newly built, or are things going to need help and being renovated and maintained over time? So there's a lot of different years in here. Some of the smallest being 1900 to 1909, and then some of the largest being 1990 to 99, as well as 80 to 89. There's data in here that just kind of gives you the hard numbers, not just the percentages built by decade. And again, all of this can be exported so that you can export this one as an Excel or a CSV file, and this one can be exported as a PNG or an SVG file.
Allison,
Yes,
Allison,
ma'am.
I don't know if now is the time to ask this, and I forgot.
Mhm.
With the beaches in that 32233 zip code in Atlantic
Mhm.
Beach, did we talk about whether that includes Jacksonville? Because that we do share that zip code with Jacksonville.
Yes. So
And
this is
so
a.
we
Mhm.
are considering Mayport and the pieces of Jacksonville that are north of Atlantic Beach in those numbers, in that
Yeah.
zip code. All right. Okay.
Yes. Yes. When we see a zip code view, this isn't necessarily within the back footprint. It's for the full zip code. Yes, that's the
Okay.
case.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this data here just talks about the housing portion of a building age, right? So the previous data was about all buildings within the beach. This one is around houses specifically. So over here you can kind of see the majority of houses that are at the beach were built between, again, 1980 and 89 and 90 to 99, where there are, less and fewer being built 2020 till now. This kind of gives you a different view of that same data by zip code and where the majority of houses are being built. So you can see here, 2020 or later, majority of houses are 32225. There's a lot in 89, 90, but 224 takes over in 2000 to 2009 and 2010 to 2019. Whereas kind of earlier, there was '05, Jack's Beach was kind of the leader, as well as 1950 to 59, which makes sense as the beach's footprint has kind of expanded, more development has expanded beyond those sections. This is really detailed count of houses by when they were built. And if you, oops, oops, sorry, press the wrong button. But let's go down to the housing shortage tracker. So, housing shortage tracker is a really interesting data set that looks at, is created by the National Association of Realtors, and it looks at the number of permits issued compared to job growth, right? And it has information on there about what is the ratio comparing those two things. So it's a national data set that has kind of big cities located on it, which I think is interesting. So if we take a look here and we zoom in, at least according to this data point, Jacksonville should have a significant supply of housing. So you can see here for Jacksonville, there are 35,000 single family housing units issued compared to the total permits of 48,000, new jobs 37,000. So that's kind of the gap. So we are right now falling into a sufficient supply category, but there are other parts of the country that aren't falling into that. And again, this map right here just kind of talks a little bit deeper about the beach's footprint when we look at that data. This one is around housing market saturation, or the percentage of housing units that are considered occupied, right? So some of these, when we look at this map, you can kind of zoom in and see there are some portions of the beach where it's really high of the number of occupied housing units. We have between 95 and 100%, whereas there are other parts that have lower, between 57 and 77%. So if you look here, you can see kind of, zoom in here. That didn't work. Try again. We're gonna zoom in. This near Sawgrass is showing at 57%, but when we go up here by, I think this is Beach Boulevard, we've got about 95% of housing units occupied, as well as the census tract on the other side of the intercoastal. 95, again, another 95%, which is like at North Atlantic, Atlantic Beach and north of Atlantic Beach. A lot of folks always ask me about owner-occupied housing units, right? So thinking about, who owns the homes and what percentage of folks are in owner-occupied housing units. And so we were able to break those owner-occupied units down by zip code. And so you can see the variance here. So we've got high rates of owner occupancy in 32082, but lower as we go to 32223. So this is the percentage, and this is kind of the hard number of folks in owner-occupied housing units per zip code. And this is how it kind of breaks down using hard numbers, right? So there's high amounts of owner occupation in this census tract and some of the lighter over here. but that's also somewhat comparative to the number of folks that live there. This information is interesting because it breaks the data down a little bit even further by owner-occupied housing units in the type of structure. So one detached unit structure, um, 2 units in the structure, 3 to 4 units, 5 to 9. So this is looking at, is it a condo, right? Or other types, and how many units are in each of those. So I won't go too far into that one. This is always interesting too, and it's a hot topic of conversation is building permits. Um, and so when we look here, you can see that within the Beaches Action Collaborative footprint, there's about 55,000 total housing units. And this data for total residential building permits issued is only available at the county level. So I did include it just for your information, but it is quite recent data. So this is coming from January 2026, and we can see Duval County versus St. John's, how it's trended over time in the number of residential building permits issued. Now, this data doesn't tell us the type of um, um, residential property, but just kind of overall. This one talks about some of the types of property. So this is the number of permits issued for residential buildings overall. This one is 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 to 4, or 5 or more units. And this is just a monthly statistic, so this is looking only at January 2026. So I want to pause there. I just went over a lot of information. Is this helpful to know? Is information good? Good.
It's really interesting, Allison.
I think it's great. And I'm now thinking we really need to share this, more widely than with just the Beaches Action Collaborative, because, I just it's we haven't really drilled down to the beaches like this in anything I've seen. So I think it's outstanding.
Thanks, Ellen.
I mean, I'm not sure how I will use this, but I just think that having this information is fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah, and putting the data out there is one thing, right? And I hope that we'll be able to do some of this at our regional convening in May, is right, talk about use cases. And that's what we started talking a little bit about that during the last sessions as well, is how can this data be used, and also sharing how it's been used, right? And so, a lot of our use cases are around people who are seeking funding, right? So using some of this data to share the story of the beach or the story of the region, when people are writing grant applications. We've also seen a lot of folks use it in advocacy, right? So for example, Habitat for Humanity was looking to acquire the Baker County version of Habitat, and talk to them about how important it is to invest in rental housing units in Baker County. So when we talked to that, they were able to leverage some of the Catalyst data around housing cost burden and rental unit affordability at in Baker County. And so they were able to show elected officials that that type of investment was really, really needed. Right. So if you could imagine taking the building permit data, comparing that and adding that to rental housing affordability data for a specific geography, it kind of starts weaving a really powerful story. And while I 100% believe in the data dashboards that we've been able to build, the more specific that we can get with data and more tailored it can be to an organization's mission, the more powerful it can be, right? And so what we've been doing is kind of testing and learning, building custom reports for our nonprofit partners at the Nonprofit Center. And like for example, we were able to help Lori Anderson with the Beaches Homeless Council on Aging build do some data analysis around where could the her transportation program expand to beyond the zip codes that it uh, currently provides for, right? So we were able to pull a custom report for her that talked a lot about where older adults live near the beach by zip code, where there are folks that and overlap that information with where folks live who are below poverty or even Alice populations, where they need that kind of affordability, where vehicles are scarce, right? So where there's people who don't have as many vehicles, and then where health is an issue in those zip codes. So it was really helpful for her, and it was a really good exercise for us to kind of help us build out that function of custom reporting for nonprofits. Anyways, I could talk about that forever. So this section is new again, talks about housing vacancy. And so when we look at the beach here, we see the majority of housing units that are vacant are because of seasonal use, right? So recreation, occasional or seasonal use. So we've got about 50% of those housing units there. We've got another reason for vacancy is that the house is for rent and has not been rented yet, right? So if a house is rented, it's considered occupied, but if it's for rent, we've got about 20% of units vacant for that reason. Another 24% of is can be considered other, which is kind of a large group, but about 4.5% were listed for sale. So they're not occupied, but they are for sale before. Sold, not occupied is a lower number, as well as rented but not occupied, still lower. Now, this breaks out housing vacancy and the reason behind by zip code. So this kind of gives the highest number here, but this data can help us better understand, where the concentration of these seasonal vacant properties are. In addition to this, you know, we recently helped legal aid do some analysis around that compared vacant property to crime rates. And so we were able to overlay mapping data that located where the highest vacant properties were and overlay data that tracked crime rates, all sorts of crime, violent and nonviolent crime. We were able to find a very, very significant correlation between the two, but also by census block group, understand where those two data points are overlapping so that they could focus some of their efforts on those areas of the community.
Allison, just another question. Sorry. When
Yeah.
when you when you show these categories and you have Beaches Action Collaborative at the top, is the methodology, are they asking for this data and compiling it, or what does that mean? I mean, I know you talked about the footprint of the Beaches Action Collaborative. So who's actually, I mean, I see the Census Bureau is the source, but who's actually culling this out for you? Is it just automatic?
Yes. So when I build a custom geography using the software that I use, the information that you see here is custom to that geography.
Yeah, I don't read Beaches Action Collaborative and think geography. So that's just a total, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So there's no I see Atlantic Beach at 32233 in the vacant. I don't see it in the category that you showed above that, wherever it went. Yeah, vacant. Yeah, I didn't see it in those other two categories. So if
Mm.
if, if that's an omission or it wasn't available, FYI.
No, I think it was my fault for not adding it in, but good catch. Thank you. I will add that in for sure.
Well, when we talk about the use of the data, I mean, the elected officials do look at it by municipality, so I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can break it out by municipality. It's just for me, like what is going to be too overwhelming for the viewer to understand,
No, I
right?
think
And
the zip code's great. I think the zip code's great.
okay, I'll add in that for vacancy. When I was working on these additions this week, I probably just forgot to include the zip code, so I'll add that in. Thank you for calling that out, though. Okay, so yeah, this is in here. So, um, this talks about the number of vacant housing units and how that's kind of changed over time. Overwhelmingly, you see kind of a dip across the beach when we take out the overall average. By zip code, you can kind of see the only vacancy that's increased is 32250. Overwhelmingly, all other zip codes have kind of seen a decrease, maybe except 2266, which had a little bit over. But you can imagine why that may be. All right, and then this data is interesting. This last point here is where we're going to talk about housing with one or more of the four severe housing problems. And this is not always it's hard to understand, but it has one of these four items. It can either lack a complete kitchen facility, lack complete plumbing, the housing is severely overcrowded, or the severely cost burden. So when we look at this data for other parts of our community, a lot of the times the data is going to show these top three items, but at the beach, a lot of it is overlapped with severely cost burden, right? Because when we think about especially rental properties at the beach, the majority, over 50% of renters at the beach are paying 55% or more of their income on rent. Um, and so here we just see the number of housing units for owner-occupied housing and renter-occupied housing that have those severe problems and where those are located at the beach. So over here, you can click these and it removes the data, right? So this is where renter focus needs to be concentrated. Not necessarily a lot of these high counts on the beach side. There's a few areas of concentration, but the highest one is going to be over the intercoastal. But when we look at owner housing, we see the kind of the highest concentration being in this census tract over here, which makes sense to me when I think about cost burden because this is like almost Nocatee area, and those are some of the highest priced homes that I've seen in a long time, and quickly rising housing costs. This is just kind of the breakdown by county, by Beaches Action Collaborative, as well as zip code. And you can see again here that there are more renters than owner occupied housing units that have those severe problems. I do want to just touch on, we have about 15 minutes left. Rental affordability at the beach, because this continues to rise and be an area of concern. So for rental affordability, there are about 49,000 total occupied housing units, 15,000 renter occupied housing units at the beach. That accounts for 31,000 people live in those renter owner occupied housing units. And the median income for those renters is about $78,000. So when we think about the median income of the beach is on another part of this dashboard, median income for the beach is about 110,000. So when we think about 110,000 for overall median income, the median income for those renters is significantly less. Thanks, Ellen. See you later. And when we see here is kind of median gross rent as a percentage of income is about 30 to 37%. So this is a breakdown of how much people are paying for their monthly home rent, which kind of includes utilities. The majority of folks are paying between $1,500 and $2,000, with the second category being $2,000 or more. But when we look at renter costs as a percentage of income, this is kind of the graph that I was talking about before, right? So we see here that overwhelmingly almost 24% of renters are paying 50% or more of their income on rent. The second highest bracket being 20 to 24%, and third highest being 40 to 49%. So these are the folks that we're most concerned about, right? Um, so this just gives us a map of where those renter households are located. So we can see a lot of renter households north of the beach, and just kind of how they break out over time. This also is an overlay map. So we haven't had a ton of bivariant mapping for this dashboard, but this is something that we can do, is where we overlay two different data points together to tell a more concise or cohesive story. So this is overlaying renter households and people of color. So where are those two variables showing up together? So we see some of this north by Mayport, as well as um, uh, west of the intercoastal. This one is, relatively high in this census group here, which if we zoom in, you can see right off Beach Boulevard. Dawn, no worries, Dawn. Thank you for joining us. But this is also renter households overlaid with people age 65 and older. So where are those two things overlapping? We see not a ton of those two areas overlapping at the beach specifically. But if we did this same map for different parts of Duval County, you'd be able to see kind of how that data changes. Um, I think that's all I want to kind of go into today. Maybe a little bit about homeowner affordability and just the kind of juxtaposition there. So overwhelmingly, the majority of housing units at the beach are owner occupied. So when we look at that same number, 55,000, that was on the last one, we see about 33, almost 34,000 are owner occupied units. Um, and that median income is significantly higher. So the last time we saw median income, it was 78,000. Overwhelmingly, owner occupied units are, their median income's about 137, almost 138,000. We all know property values of owner occupied homes are significant at the beach, where the majority of them are the values between 500,000 and $1 million, which is probably not surprising to this group. But I think this is also a really interesting juxtaposition, because this shows us how much owners of houses are spending on their income, and it's almost the exact opposite of the renter the graph, right? So you're seeing here that the majority of homeowners at the beach are spending less than 10% of their income to own their home, and the second highest being 10 to 14%. Where if you remember, this graph showed really high bar right here, which is 50% or more. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I know I've shared a lot. Any thoughts or reactions on the data that we've kind of talked about today?
Super cool, Allison. I look forward to the meeting next month.
Thank you. Brian, I know Dawn had to jump off, but have you heard of any of the homeless data being available publicly, right? I know within HMIS it's available at like really specific geographic detail, but I can only access things that are publicly available. And do you know of anything that goes down farther than the county level that I could access?
Farther than Duval County?
Yeah, like,
That's a good question. I've never asked, but I know that they are serving some surrounding counties now,
mm-hmm.
like Nassau and such. And so I'm sure that's probably some of that's probably available, Allison.
Okay.
They,
Do you have Eden's contact information?
Yes, I talked to him earlier this year about kind of some of this stuff, and he said it was coming, but I haven't reached back out to him in a minute, but
Yeah,
I will follow up with him.
or I can reach out to Chaz. Chaz is always great help as well if you need it. So
Okay.
hey, Brian,
yeah,
can y'all hear me?
Yes.
yes,
Okay, I'm on my phone.
unfortunately we can.
The data is there. They just they have not released it. The data that I sent you earlier, Brian,
Yeah,
is the data for the beaches. So I know the data is there. They just have not released it publicly to
I think
HUD.
I think she was asking about the outlying counties, Tracy.
But I mean that I think all of that is in the same. I think it's all in the same boat where they haven't released any of their numbers,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Not publicly yet.
not public.
You know, when at least for me, when I'm trying to, aggregate data, I want to be really careful with what I say and make sure all the numbers tick and tie back to each other. So I get that it takes a minute to just make sure everything's in order for releasing.
yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can get it though, Allison. Do you
Okay.
have you have Chaz's information as well?
I
So,
think
so
so. I think Tracy's given it to me.
yeah, that's probably who I would start with, to be honest with you.
Okay.
He's over Ed and all them. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I know for Beaches Action Collaborative though, they really care a lot about homelessness. So whenever we do these data sessions, they're always like, "We need more homeless data." And I'm like, "We're gonna get it. I promise. We're gonna get there."
yeah, yeah, you're getting it. You're getting it.
So anyway. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. I will share our survey if you'd like to fill it out. Me know how I did and if there's anything else you want to see in our data projects. Um, hold on.
Yeah, send the survey. We'll fill it out.
You don't have to give me a 5 just because you know me. You can tell me what you really feel.
I thought I was going to give you a 5, but I thought it was on a 10-point scale.
Oh, I love you guys. I miss you so much, Brian. Uh,
Feel is mutual. Yeah, we love you as well, Allison.
Okay, well, I will see you guys soon, hopefully. And Beth, thanks for joining. I didn't hear your voice, but it's always wonderful to know you're on a call with me.
So,
So,
well, I'm now off mute. So
oh, there she is.
thank you for having, yes, I am really here. Yes. So, um, but this was all very interesting. So thank you for, showing us how to navigate everything and also, putting the data into some kind of, sense for us. So thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
I would give you a 5 out of 5, even if Brian is, like this troublemaker, but he is a troublemaker. So,
Yes.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Beth. I appreciate the encouragement.
well, at least you're achieving your goal.
Yes.
That's true.
All right. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
You too,
Okay,
Allison.
thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye.